Yes, and there's actually one more thing that I also too want to say about the offer to purchase. So this is another thing that is important. So do keep in mind certain figures. In Jamaica, if you're a foreigner, you will only get financed a mortgage up to 90%. Up to 90%. So sometimes, and like I said, we will talk about that later on in the video, they can even go under 90%. But if all things are equal, if all things check out, then yes, you can get a mortgage of up to 90. So with that being said, you are going to have to put a percentage down for your down payment of the house. And whatever you don't put for the down payment, you also too have to make that up to get to your 10%, if that makes sense. So they will finance up to 90, and at the end of it, you will have to have that 10%. So say for instance, for example, if that wasn't super clear, for example, at the time that I ended up putting my down payment, I put 5% of the house down. But at the closing, like when we were about to close, I had to make sure that I had that last 5%, if that makes sense. And like I said, we will talk about it more in depth as the video goes on. But do keep that in mind. Also too, what I would keep in mind, whatever you're putting as the down payment, that is not refundable. That is not refundable. So like I say, that is also too why I put down half of the remaining 10%. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to take that gamble, you know, pending you can secure your mortgage, then go for it. But if you're somebody like me, and like I said, we will talk about it later on why I was a little skeptical if I could secure the mortgage, then maybe you want to play it a bit safer and go lower, like a 5% down, you know, so you can allot for other things. But with that being said, so yes, let's say you found a percentage that you're wanting to put down for the deposit, your offer gets approved, yay, you know, you found your house, you're ready to go. So now what happens is your lawyer contacts the seller's lawyer, and so they start drafting your agreement of sale. So basically, you know, it's what it sounds like. It's your sales agreement. And that also too on there kind of has your timeline of how long the sale should take and things of that nature. The timeline is pretty strict. I don't know if I want to use that word, but they do abide by the timeline. There were times in my in the sale, in my sale, that there were times when both of us kind of had, you know, to veer off a little bit. I had to ask for some extensions here and there. Like I said, we'll talk about it. But pretty much the timeline is what the timeline is. And so, like I say, it goes, hey, we need this by this date, this by this date, this by this date, and things of that nature. So what happened is the sellers, you know, they draft up the agreement of sale, they send it to your lawyer. Your lawyer will look over it with you, and you guys can discuss, yeah, this looks good, yeah, this looks good, what is that doesn't sound right, and you can like negotiate in those terms with your agreement of sale. And then based on what you say, she sends those corrections back to them, and if they agree, then you're good to go, and things of that nature. But like I say, it is very helpful to have a lawyer in this time. There were even some things in my original agreement, like some things like regarding like the water and stuff like that, and my lawyer was reading it, she was like, that doesn't sound fantastic. And so she put in some corrections, they agreed to it. And like I say, even with the down payment, I was willing to put 7% down, she negotiated it down to 5%. And so they agreed to that and things of that nature. So like I say, during this process, it is very, very, very beneficial to have a lawyer, because they can even explain things to you in layman's terms, so you understand exactly what is going on, exactly what is happening. So yes, once both parties have come to a settlement, you know, based on your agreement of sale, and you've come to terms that you both agree with, then it's time to sign it. So like I say, for this portion, I was in America. So I was not signing any of the documents in person in Jamaica. So because of that, notaries are going to be your friend. Notaries are going to be your friend. Now, notaries can incur quite the cost. They can incur quite the cost. But here's how you're going to avoid those notary costs. I highly recommend, if you can't get to it, then it's fine, but I highly recommend checking with your financial institution in America. So for instance, I bank with Chase, and at not all locations, but some locations in my home bank, they have notaries. It's free. They will sign as many as you need. The woman that I work with at Chase, love her. She has been fantastic. She has notarized all of my documentation. But yes, you will need a notary if you are doing these signings overseas. It's mandatory. Like, they're not going to proceed if you don't have your signature notarized. So yes, you are going to need a notary. Depending, you are probably going to have to get them shipped over. So in Jamaica now, I don't know, they could have other kind of courier services. All I know is I didn't want to take the risk. They were telling me to do FedEx, so I've done FedEx. So I would recommend it. Like I say, I don't know if they do UPS. I don't know if they do any kind of other mail. I don't want to take the chance. I had valuable documents, so I FedExed them all because they all told me to FedEx. So you're going to have to FedEx the documents. You can go to any FedEx shipping store. Depending on the weight of it, it can be, how much should I pay? Some of them I had to pay $100. No, I'm sorry. Some of them I had to pay between $50 and $75. Some of them that were like really thick towards the end, yes, I had to pay like $100, give or take, for the international shipping, for the expedited as well. So do keep that in mind. There are certain costs that will be incurred from this. But yes, just do keep that in mind. So in my case, I was on a timeline where you have to get your, what is that letter called? What is that letter called? Letter of commitment. Your letter of commitment. So that is your next step. Once you sign the documents, you're on the timeline to get your letter of commitment. So what does that mean? That means your financial institution, they commit to giving you your mortgage. So in order to get that, like I say, you're going to reach out to your mortgage officer again and say, hey, you know, I have all my home documents. Here's my agreement of sale. They're going to need that. And like I say, I will put on the screen the other documents that they will probably ask for as well. But they're going to say, hey, I need that. I need your statement of account. I need to see how much money you already put down, and your job. Do you have your job still? Do I need a job letter? It's just a lot of stuff that they ask for. So basically, you're going to give it to them, and then they're going to basically let you know how much money the bank is willing to give you. Like I say, you can get up to 90%. But there are instances, and like I say, we'll talk about it shortly, where that's not always the case. So yes, you're going to get your letter of commitment, and that's basically saying, yes, we commit to, we will give this person this mortgage. So yes, let's briefly talk about an issue, some issues that I ran into. So I am 24 years old, and for the first couple of years in my 20s, I was on my family's off-grid community. I went like straight out when I graduated. So I went from the ages of like 18, 19, all the way up to I was like 22, and I was living off-grid with my family. We still have it. I'm actually back there now until I fully move to Jamaica. But yes, so with that comes certain things. So I did not really have a work history. All of my time, attention was spent on farming. It was spent on taking care of the land. It was spent on, you know, making the tiny houses and helping my family and things like that. So it wasn't until I turned late 22, 23 that I actually moved to Houston temporarily, and I started working. So with that, you can imagine that I had a very short credit history. I had a very short work history. And so you can imagine things like that can look very risky to lenders. So before going with the bank that I actually have now, that I love in Jamaica, that financed me the 90% and things of that nature, prior to that, I actually had another bank that I was working with. And that bank was JMMB Bank. So I was working with them for a while. And so, you know, I was talking to the mortgage officer, and, you know, up until this whole time, like I said, he had my credit history and he knew, you know, my work history and things like that. And I was never quite told that it would be an issue, you know, once it came to trying to get my mortgage and my commitment letter for my mortgage. But flash forward to, like I say, now we're on the timeline, right? Now I'm sending in these documents. I'm telling my mortgage officer, hey, now it's time. I need my commitment letter. I'm ready. So he comes back. He comes back. And mind you, I do have a little bit of credit because I did get a credit card. I knew it was important to kind of build up credit. So I did have the credit for about a year and a little bit, a year and some change. And then I also had my job like for a year and some change. So I did have something. But yes, so he runs my approval, I guess, to the bank. He comes back and he's basically saying, you know, would you be able, if the bank says you need to put 20% down, would you be able to put 20% down? And I basically tell him, absolutely not. Like, I do not have the funds for that. I did not plan for that. I was not ready for that, you know, so no, I do not have those funds. So basically he comes back and basically tells me the bank will only put down 80%. And they're not budging. It's either 80%, we give you your commitment letter and you take that deal, or nothing. So at that particular time, you know, I'm freaking out. I'm on my timeline trying to get this commitment letter. I reach out to another bank, JN Bank. JN Bank. Yeah, I did not have the best experience with them at all. I would not recommend them. If I was going to recommend anybody over them, it would probably be JMMB. Would not recommend JN Bank. It was very hard to get in contact with them. Sometimes I even faced some attitude, even from some of their employees, silence, and it was just a lot. So, but after JMMB, I went to JN Bank. Then after JN Bank, mind you, my timeline is like crunched. And it's basically I'm running out of time, which hence why I said earlier I did have to get an extension. And the sellers have been very nice. They were fantastic the whole time. My whole team was fantastic. But yes, they allowed me that extension, and basically my lawyer pointed me in the direction of NCB, which is the bank I would recommend. Tens again across the board. Like, when I tell you NCB came in and saved the day. So yes, basically they were willing, you know, even with my history, they were willing to give me the mortgage. So I got the mortgage. I talked to the mortgage officer, who I love. Again, once more, if you guys are interested in any of my contacts, link is below. But yes, and she worked with me through it all, and basically I was able to get my commitment letter, and then subsequently after the commitment letter, I got my letter of undertaking. So do be aware that there are certain bank fees and things like that that do come with the letter of undertaking. And again, some fees can be higher or less depending on your credit history and things of that nature, so do be aware of that. Right now, I'm in like I say, the final stages of the closing of my house. So now the sellers just have to send in their remaining documents, and then, you know, we sign on the line, and, you know, I get my keys and the whole thing. But yes, that is basically the process of what you have to do to buy a home in Jamaica. But yes guys, please stay tuned. I do have more content coming up in regard to Jamaican home ownership and traveling and living abroad and all of those kinds of things. So please do stay tuned, and thank you guys once more for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.